This is Alex Harris for ESBR. Pleasure to be joined by Adam Moralee today. And first of all, mate, how are we feeling?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Good to be in Birmingham.
It is indeed. And of course, here, Solomon Dakers, and he's got the rematch with Michael Webster. And I suppose, as a fight in general, do you feel like that has the makings to be another very good English fight?
Yeah, it's a good English title fight. I mean, you saw what happened before. Some people even had Michael Webster winning the fight. You know, I think Sol won the fight, but it was a very close fight. I like the fact Sol's fighting him again because Sol's going to show the improvements he's made from the last fight, show that he really belongs at British level.
How important are rematches, like you say, to be able to, right any wrongs?
Yeah, I think they can be. I mean, look, Sol won the fight, so that's why we went for Adelaide next. We weren't looking for the rematch. Credit to Michael Webster for taking it. Credit to him for being ready. He's not had lots of time to get ready, so credit to the guy. Got a ton of respect for him. But I think it's a good exercise for Solomon to compare and contrast how he was when he first fought him and how he is now, and I think he's in great shape.
Do you feel like with every fight he is improving like every fighter should be?
Yeah, I think his performance against Webster was probably a dip down, actually. I do. I think his performance against Webster was probably a dip down. You'll see tomorrow on the scales, Sol will be lighter, and I think you'll see a steady rise in Sol's performances. The dip down against Webster will be replaced by a spike here, I think.
And for heavyweights in general, from your kind of time working with them and seeing them, has it always kind of been better if they've come in heavier or come in a lot lighter?
I think there's a lot of focus on weight, especially with someone like Joyce. He weighed 250 when he first fought Zhang and then 282 when he next fought him. I don't think the focus should be so much on weight. It's more about fitness. It's more about overall longevity, able to go the rounds. But you can tell when a fighter is heavier than he should be, and that will have a knock-on effect on fitness. So I think it's not just weight. So for example, Joe's fighting Chisora next week. He may be a similar weight to how he's fought before, but he's a ton fitter. So it's not just about weight.
We'll touch upon that Joyce fight in just a moment, but for Dakers, of course, he was meant to get Adelaide for this fight. He said himself that he doesn't really think it's going to happen anymore. It seems like he's been waiting around for quite a while for it. Are you personally frustrated as well?
Look, I mean, things happen in boxing. We're supposed to fight David in March, didn't happen, got postponed and pushed back. I mean, Sol can't just put his career on hold for one person, and maybe that fight never happens. We've got this fight now, we've got to win this fight, and then we want the winner of Wardley Clock.
Do you feel like, to an extent, Adelaide may be fearing Dakers as an opponent just because he knows if he loses that, then he's back to square one?
Yeah, look, possibly. I mean, there is that theory that if he loses to Wardley and he loses to Dakers, it's difficult for him at British level. I understand he's injured and I believe him, he's a good bloke. So that's why I think this fight's not happening right now. But I think David will come again, and I think Sol will probably move off this English title, and I'm sure David will probably fight for him.
And I suppose Dakers wants a British title next. Do you feel like when he kind of gets around to getting his turn, it'll be a vacant title?
Do I think it'll be a vacant title? No, I don't actually. I think the winner of Wardley Clark will probably want to fight him because it's a good British matchup. You know, that you've got to look at the winner of Wardley Clark, where they go, and there's quite a big gap, I think, between them and the real world level of Fury, Usyk, AJ, Dubois, even the bottom of that pile, Joyce. You know, there's quite a big gap, and probably another all-British fight is probably a good idea for them.
Do you feel like you said, there is quite a big gap? Do you feel like it's quite difficult to really creep into that gap?
I think you've just got to be managed the right way and face the right international opponents to get through that. I think you have people who are gatekeepers like Derek Chisora. We may be seeing the end of Derek, but you've got to manage your way through that in probably 3, 4, 5 fights. But if you're good enough, you will do it.
And for a Johnny Fisher, and he's in a possible similar position, but he's obviously just fought an international type opponent. Do you feel like you can now go from that to fighting kind of English level again?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I think come August 24th, whether we'll have the right English opponent or an international opponent, I think it'll probably be international. That's what we're currently looking at. We want him to go the rounds. He's only had a round and a half, or no, round and 30 seconds all year. So we want him to get the rounds in. Johnny is developing on the job. But then, yeah, he should be fighting for English titles soon after.
And I suppose, when did it come about? Obviously, like I say, just come off the big win and it got announced he's fighting again. Is it nice to being able to keep him active?
Absolutely. Look, Matchroom want him out. They want him active. They've got a very big interest in his progression, just like his management, just like his training team. So, yeah, everyone's, around Johnny in a way where we feel we have someone that can be managed in the right way up to British, European, and then world level.
And from his last performance, obviously his first main event, delivering the way that he did, do you feel like that is the makings of a superstar, doing them kind of performances?
Yeah, I do. I think you've got to have your feet on the ground. A lot of the time when you fight an opponent like Babic, people will go, "Oh, well, you did that," but Brzezinski knocked him out in a round as well, and you can't derive too much from it. What we derived from that was how Johnny was in camp, how Johnny did in sparring against Ergovic. So we're watching him. You don't want to get too excited. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, he's certainly progressing at a very good rate on the boxing side, and then on the effectively, the fame side or how well known he is, that's progressing at a much faster rate. And what we've got to do is level it up so that he doesn't get ahead of himself and take an opponent that he's not ready for.
And the heavyweight division as a whole, do you feel like it is in a great position at the moment?
Yeah, I do. Look, I think it's a bit of a changing of the guard coming soon, probably within the next 12 to 18 months. There'll be a changing of the guard. I think in 12 to 18 months, maybe there won't be any Fury anymore. Maybe Usyk will move down to cruiserweight. Maybe we won't have AJ anymore. And you're going to be left with, maybe Joyce will be gone, maybe in a couple of years probably. So let's say 2 years. I think those big names will have gone. Chisora will have gone. I'm not sure if Dillian White's fighting again soon. So your next generation is Wardley, Clark, but he's not young, Johnny Fisher. You look worldwide, Jared Anderson, Guido Vianello, those kind of guys. But yeah, I think we're in for a big changing of the guard.
And I suppose maybe are we kind of, like I say, waiting for these big superstars to come through and really hoping that fighters like these Solomon Dakers can create a name for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Sol is part of that young crop of British fighters. Solomon Dakers and Johnny Fisher, in my opinion, are two of the best British young heavyweights coming through. But they're coming through at British level. And when you're looking at that world level, Anderson-Bacoli's a really interesting fight. Because if Bacoli wins that, what does that make you think about Anderson? Who is that next superstar who's going to be pushing for heavyweight? Could it come from the pack? Could it be Solomon Dakers? Could it be Johnny Fisher? Could it be Guido? I mean, you've got to be... No one really knows at this point. I'm not sure many people have predicted Usyk to be undisputed heavyweight champion, say 5 years ago. So you don't know where they're coming from, but there's definitely a big changing of the guard about to happen.
And some of these top heavyweights, they only really fight kind of once to twice a year quite often, but Anthony Joshua seems to have been fighting a lot more recently, and do you feel like that activity as a whole, even at the top level, is always beneficial?
Yeah, I think it is beneficial. You see what's happened to a guy like Andy Ruiz, who was definitely in everyone's top 10, hasn't fought. It just won't help him. I mean, but also these people are fighting to earn money. That's their living. So being regularly, I mean, after Joe fights Chisora, I want him to go straight into another camp. Stay active, stay in camp. And how long's Joe got left? 2 years. Should be fighting as much as he can. That's what you've got to do with these fighters. So I think a lot of the time these big fights don't happen because people think, oh, it's not enough. But I'm definitely on the side of activity.
And for Joyce, obviously they had the face-off with Chisora, and it seemed like there was a bit of a back and forth between the two of them. Did you expect there to be any kind of bad blood?
I don't think there's bad blood. I think Joe is definitely a little bit more spiteful. I've seen him in this camp, more focused, and he sees Chisora as someone in the way now. I think he's generally a very relaxed guy, doesn't have a problem with anyone. He definitely doesn't have a problem with Derek Chisora. But if Chisora is disrespectful to him or if something irks him, he'll let him know.
And I suppose as a fight in general for him, do you feel like this is a necessary fight?
Joyce Chisora? Yeah, absolutely. Look, Joe needs to take a big name out. He was in everyone's top 3 after he beat Parker. The back-to-back losses to Zhang really hurt him, and he now needs to show people the level he's at. Chisora is an incredible servant to the game, and any win against Derek Chisora is a good win in my book. He has fought at the very, very highest level. Very, very few people have ever stopped him. You can count them on the fingers of one hand, so I'm looking forward to a destructive performance from Joe Joyce.
Do you feel like we're expecting Chisora to come out swinging?
Absolutely, that's what he does. People underestimate his quality. Every single time he turns up, Joe Parker, who's a terrific boxer, never stopped him over 24 rounds. He's always dangerous in the fight, and I think it's a big fight.
Excellent. And one final question, I suppose, in general, do you feel like SJAM Boxing is going to be keeping progressing really well?
Yeah, I do actually. I think we've got some big fights coming up for our guys, particularly the heavyweights. I mean, all 4 of our heavyweights are boxing July and August. Guido's got a big fight against Makhmudov August 17th on a top-ranked card. And, they're the heavy guys in our team. And then when you go below that, John Hedges just won a Southern Area title. We've got Tommy Fletcher, who will be looking to step up to that level. Nicola Bark just made her debut, which was fantastic. And then we've got people coming back, like Florian, like Lerone Richards. You've got Junaid Boston in interesting fights. So a lot of that crop are starting to come up nearer to the top. But yeah, exciting times.
Adam, thank you very much, man.
Thanks very much.